Good morning. It is Monday, the 10th of February. My name is Gretchen Ho, bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. Let's get to the stories that matter today.
Impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte, says Senate President Chis Escudero. But Senator Coco Pimentel says there's still a way to proceed with the special session. The Senate can still convene to push through the trial. That's according to former Supreme Court Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio. And the 2025 national budget will play a big role. Heavy rains from the shear line caused flooding in several areas of Palawan over the weekend, and more rains are expected today. And in sports, Filipino Olympian EJ Obiena strikes gold in France.
Hey, good morning once again. Welcome to our program Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of the day. Now, first on the agenda, Senate President Chis Escudero reiterates that the Senate will not rush the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. But Senate Minority Leader Coco Pimentel has a suggestion to keep the proceedings moving. Here's the report.
Senate President Chis Escudero said there is no need to rush impeachment proceedings against Vice President Sara Duterte.
Marapat ngayon na nasimula na ito ay matapos. Matapos ng hindi minamadali. Matapos ng wala ring labis na pagpapaliban.
He emphasized that the trial aims to hold government officials accountable.
Hindi po namin trabaho i-convict siya. Hindi po namin trabaho i-acquit siya. Trabaho po namin tiyakin na magagawaran siya ng hustisya. Trabaho po namin na tiyakin na magiging credible at kapanipaniwala.
No date has been set for the start of the trial since the articles of impeachment were transmitted to the Senate last Wednesday. The Senate is on recess and will resume its session on June 2 after the 2025 midterm elections. Escudero previously stated that the Senate must be in session for the impeachment to convene. He also reiterated that there is no legal basis for holding a special session.
Kung ano man ang gawin namin, kumanan man kami o kumaliwa, palaging may magpipintas, malulungkot, magagalit o hindi sasang-ayon. Subalit, wala kaming pakialam sa totoo lang.
Senator Joel Villanueva, who will serve as one of the judges in the impeachment trial, supported Escudero's stance.
Hindi ako po pwedeng kumampi sa left or right. Hindi ho eh. Hindi ho po pwede yun. Kailangan kong gampanan yung tungkulin ko na maging credible ang impeachment court. Kapani-paniwala ang exercise na aming gagawin dahil yun ang sinumpahan namin tungkulin.
Meanwhile, Senator Coco Pimentel proposed incorporating legislative matters into a special session so they can tackle Vice President Duterte's impeachment.
Initially, I saw the sense in the argument of the Senate President that before the Senate can convene as an impeachment court, we have to formally transform the Senate into a court. So we have to formally do that in a session. Kaya nga ang idea ko, if the President will call for a special session, lagyan na rin natin ng legislative matters para gumalaw yung ibang renash namin. Kasi masyadong na-rush yung iba eh. So we will be given more time as far as legislative matters are concerned, and then we can formally convene, make the necessary, adopt the necessary resolutions to formally convene as an impeachment court.
He added that if a special session were held now, the earliest the Senate could convene as an impeachment court will be on June 2.
So June 2 ngayon, logic tells us the latest date that we can start to convene, that the Senate can convene as an impeachment court is June 2. The latest. Kasi pwedeng ang gawing earlier yan, lalo na kung may special session na ipatawag.
Former Senate President Franklin Drilon believes that the Senate must act immediately on Duterte's impeachment. Drilon said the upcoming campaign period and elections should not be an excuse to delay the trial. He explained that senators are obliged to proceed with the hearings right away under the Constitution.
Tungkulin ng mga mambabatas na tatalakayin ang impeachment complaint kampanya man o hindi. Hindi kasi sinasabi sa batas, sa ligang batas na pag may kampanya, hindi kayo pwedeng magkaroon ng impeachment trial.
Now that the Senate is on break, Rilon said the president should step forward and call for a special session. According to the former Senate leader, this power is exclusive to the chief executive.
Ang kapangyarihan ng Pangulo upang tumawag ng special session ay hindi po pwedeng limitahan sa pagtatalakay lamang ng saligang batas. Iyan po ay gagalangin ng Korte Suprema.
Even while on break, the Senate can convene a special session to immediately begin the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. That's according to former Supreme Court Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio. Carpio noted that amending the 2025 General Appropriations Act could serve as the key to calling a special session. Should the Senate decide against holding a special session, Carpio said a plunder case can be filed first against Vice President Duterte, particularly regarding her spending of 125 million pesos in confidential funds.
Ang suggestion ko, ang premise natin, the President can call a session to ask Congress to enact an urgent law. There is an urgent bill yung amendment to the General Appropriations Act. So pwede gawin yan. And then, sabihin niya, okay, I will give you 20 days or 25 days to convene in a special session. Madali naman lang i-amend yung GAA. Siguro, isang session day lang yon. So may extra sila na mga 20-24 days.
Opo.
So, kahit na 20 days, kaya na yun So they can now convene as a impeachment court. Tingin ko pwede pag talagang if there is a will.
Supporters of Vice President Sara Duterte gathered for an indignation rally on Sunday. Supporters were seen wearing green, Duterte's campaign color, at Freedom Park on Rojas Avenue in Davao City. They took turns speaking to the crowd about rejecting Duterte's impeachment and calling for peace instead. The event wrapped up with a candle lighting ceremony and the singing of Ca Freddy Aguilar's iconic Bayan Ko. Duterte's impeachment articles are now at the Senate after the complaint was approved by the House of Representatives. In other news, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa apologizes for his offensive remarks towards Akbayan Party List Representative Percy Sendanya. The senator acknowledged his mistake and took full responsibility. Recall that he had mocked Sendanya's facial asymmetry caused by a stroke, suggesting he would punch his face to quote-unquote balance it. Sendanya welcomed the apology and urged Senator Bato to also apologize to all stroke survivors hurt by his remarks. Sendanya is among those who endorsed the first impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte. Right up next, several areas in Palawan submerged in flood on Sunday due to shear line. And don't go away. We'll have more matters to discuss right after the break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still with us on Morning Matters. Several areas in Palawan were flooded due to rains brought by the shear line over the weekend. Floodwaters entered homes in Barangay San Pedro, Puerto Princesa City. The downpours also turned some roads into rivers. And in response, the Coast Guard Palawan deployed personnel to assist in low-lying areas. Meanwhile, in the town of Nara, the police launched search and rescue operations for stranded residents in Barangay Elvita. Pag-asa warned of moderate to heavy rains in Palawan until today, February 10. In weather, 3 weather systems are currently affecting the country. The shear line is causing scattered rains across Visayas as well as over Bicol, Mimaropa, Quezon, and Aurora. Easterlies, meanwhile, will trigger rains over Caraga and the rest of Mindanao. The northeast monsoon or amihan may also bring isolated rains over Luzon, including Metro Manila, Central Luzon, and Calabarzon. The Commission on Elections called on candidates to use biodegradable materials for their campaigns to help protect the environment. During the launch of the COMELEC's Committee on Environmentally Sustainable Elections, Chairman George Garcia emphasized that election season should not be an excuse for candidates to improperly dispose of garbage in public spaces. He also encouraged voters to push candidates to include an environmental agenda in their political platforms. The campaign period for the 2025 midterm elections will begin on Tuesday, February 11. In the world of sports, Filipino Olympic pole vaulter EJ Obiena is back on top. This comes after his dominating performance at the meeting Metz Moselle Athlelor in France. Obiena cleared a 5.7-meter jump to claim the gold. It is a season best for EJ, who just bagged the silver medal at the jump meeting Cottbus in Germany. Netherlands' Menno Woon secured second place. He matched Obiena's 5.70-meter mark but failed to clear the 5.8-meter jump. Coming in third was American pole vaulter Christopher Nielsen. The Asian Boxing and the Olympic Council of Asia signed a memorandum of understanding to boost boxing in Asia. The agreement aims to improve officiating standards and to create more competition opportunities for Asian boxers. World Boxing and AB Executive Board member Ricky Vargas and OCA Director General Hussein Al-Musalam attended the signing. This partnership is seen as a step toward boxing's inclusion in the LA 2028 Olympics. And when we return, it is time to provide context on some issues about the upcoming midterm polls. Don't go away. Morning Matters will be back. I'm Gretchen Ho, and you're back on Morning Matters. Here on Morning Matters, we know that understanding the news starts with context. And so for our pilot episode, we invited two special guests to help us weigh in on issues ahead of the midterm polls. Live here in the Signal Experience Center, we have Publicos Asia founder and CEO and political analyst Malu Tikia. Also joining us is campaign strategist Alan Herman, who is also the president and CEO of Agents International. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for waking up early to be my guest for today.
Privilege. Thank you very much. What a privilege not only to be at the pilot, guest at the pilot episode, but to be with one of my idols, Malu, an industry beacon. And hey, I'm looking forward to talking about this firefight that's about to happen.
Correct. Well, it is one day before the official kickoff of the national campaign period.
That's right.
And we are in the midst of a complex political climate. The midterms coming up, but also an impeachment complaint in tow. That's why we invited both of you to help us, sink that in.
Or attempt to make sense of this
make
jigsaw.
sense of the whole situation, right? This impeachment complaint was in the House for almost about 2 months.
Yeah,
and then
over 3 years?
Yeah.
2023, they already started with it.
Well, the official filing was
like
October,
4 months.
I think. Yeah, October. Since October.
And in the past week, it was a whirlwind, right? It just was sped up and sent over to the Senate. And I want to get your thoughts on what happened here. What caused the change of mind? Was there anything in particular, or to be more specific about my question, was the president, you think, behind it?
Well, my sense, yes, because, in politics, things are planned. When it happens, there's actually planning in it. The son signed as number one, and that the bookend was the speaker at 215 tells a lot. My only worry there is that they sat on it for 3 months with the 3 impeachment, and then suddenly they came up with the 4th impeachment, which actually violated the rules. So I don't know how they will be able to explain that. When they transmitted it to the Senate, it was just a certification, and the articles of impeachment was not included. The articles of impeachment came out as a press release. They violated the rules because the fourth impeachment should have been referred to the Speaker, and the Speaker has 10 days to include it in the order of business. That was not done. What was done was on
The last day.
the last day, they actually pressured everyone to sign. And that signing, it was not referred to the Speaker, it was not included in the order of business. What was included was the 213 votes, and it was informed in the House.
But
that,
isn't this the shortcut version?
It is the shortcut.
You
Shots
can collect
fired.
1/3
That's true.
votes
But
from the
still, you
congressman.
need to refer it to the Speaker for 10 days in order to include it in the order of business. If you notice, Gretchen, there was no explanation of vote on the 1/3, right? And that they referred it on the last day, which the Senate cannot act on it because there is no plenary already. You have to understand that legislative bodies operate on the plenary, not individual members or committees. The plenary has to act on it before anything happens. So when they transmitted it to the Senate, it was like almost 5 p.m.
Yeah, for about
So
4:15.
so what is the Senate supposed to do? Even if the Constitution says it should be immediately tackled, the fact of the matter is there is no plenary, there is no session already.
Actually, the Senate adjourned earlier
Yes.
than its calendar. Wednesday pa lang, although they had Thursday and Friday, they adjourned earlier. There are options, and we'll talk about that later. I want to know what you heard.
Even
from
then,
behind the
well,
scenes.
first, that's still a point of contention whether the Senate, I mean, the word forthwith is a contentious word being bandied about. But to your question, Gretchen, although our Philippine democracy operates on 3 co-equal branches of government, I think we know from past experience, from decades of watching this political drama, we know that the executive pretty much has the driver's wheel in terms of controlling events, especially for a majority-dominated House. So does the President ostensibly have his fingerprints on this impeachment? Probably not. If you wanted to be technical about it, he has made pronouncements saying that, I'm agnostic. I don't want to disturb matters of government business in terms of addressing poverty and whatnot. This is on the back seat, but perhaps those in the know will
Actually, ang
take that
sabi
with
niya,
a grain of salt.
kasi
yeah.
nagkaroon ng press conference nung after nitong ma-declare, ang sabi ni Presidente is parang masyado naman yata tayong believe sa kanya na wala naman siya pakialam doon. He isn't as powerful as people make him out to be. He's given too much credit. And from this point on, he will just be a very interested observer.
Maybe a little self-deprecation on the
I don't think
President's
that's
part.
true.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the GAA, certainly he was involved in it.
Shots fired again.
Right? So again, I don't see it to
Cannonballs are
be
flying
such.
this way.
But I do remember back in November, after the presser or the Zoom conference of Vice President Sara Duterte, si PBBM meron siyang statement, may video siya eh. At ang sinabi niya, pursuing the impeachment is a storm in a teacup.
He sure did say
It's a
that.
waste of time.
Yeah.
And biglang nalito lahat, yung mga
Yes,
congressmen, kung anong
yes.
gagawin, tutuloy ba, hindi, I mean, yun ang tanong ko, what changed here?
And and until now, just to be fair, until now he's still officially, the official stand is he is an observer. He cannot directly intervene. By the way, the Constitution prohibits that in the first place. So what changed? I'm not sure if, and I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but I think this fits into a long-term strategy. What's happening here is something known as political kneecapping, which I'm sure Malu has vast experience in.
What does that mean? Help us understand
You're a
that.
volleyball player. You should know what kneecapping is.
When you kneecap your opponent, and the best time is you give your opponent the optimal length of time before you do any such kneecapping, so that their so-called recovery period, think about it like a kneecap injury, is lessened. So you wait until the last
but
minute.
then we're left in an awkward situation.
They meaning?
I mean, everybody's left in an awkward situation, whether or not to do the special session in the Senate, whether this will be tackled during that special session, or if this will be tackled right after the midterm
So it
elections.
tells you what's wrong with this administration. There is no plan. They plan politically.
But then he said
but
it
in
was
the
a
long
plan.
term, yes, there's a plan, politically, transactional, but in the long term, there's none. They are subjected to the whims and the caprices of so many players. Very important to see that we are going into elections, to campaign period, and when you file an impeachment, that kind of makes the ground very difficult to read. You are administration, you control the levers of power,
Right.
and yet you throw this impeachment there. So it gravitates certain voter segments to really define their position. One of which are the Dutertes. I think it's very clear that the impeachment is a way to kneecap the Dutertes, whether for 2028, which is beyond, or between the years 2025 to 28. My problem there is the reading of this administration in terms of lame duck. I think this administration went on lame duck in a very, very early period when they did the PhilHealth, when they did the budget, when they did the impeachment. Those are cards thrown on the table that would, suddenly have a different impact, which they failed to measure. So when you go to the ground, people are angry. There is protest vote in terms of the PhilHealth and the GAA. Remember, it will be subject to the Supreme Court oral hearings. So this will add up to the percolation that is happening. And I think that misinformed, misreading of the situation would be to the advantage of the opposition. The problem with the opposition, PDP has not claimed to be the opposition.
Yes.
That is a big problem.
Well, just to take a contrarian point of view, one could also argue that there is great one-upmanship happening also to precisely sway attention away from
All of
the
those,
GAA
right?
and the PhilHealth. Suddenly they throw this
Because some would
impeachment
say
wrench,
some would say
last
that
minute.
it might have been the reason why this was
diversion.
pursued
Right,
because of
overt.
the issues over the budget.
Correct. I mean, the pillars of communication don't change. There's only avert, attack, and applaud. You're attacking, you're applauding your candidate, and you're averting issues away from
What is your sense
sensitivities.
over the Senate? Over the weekend, several senators made different statements. Like, for
Right.
example, Chis Escudero says there is no rush, no need to rush this. This will be tackled in proper time. The focus is on giving justice to the whole
Right.
situation. On the other hand, we have Senator Coco Pimentel saying that there are bills that still need to be tackled,
Sure.
and that could happen in a special session at hindi raw forthwith kung mag-aantay pa ng more than 3 months, no? Dahil ang nasa konstitusyon natin, dapat pagkapasa sa Senado, forthwith,
Forthwith,
the
agad.
Senate shall forthwith proceed.
Right.
What is your read on the Senate?
Well, right now, I think the Senate is trying to, and I just smiled at somebody who waved at me. Sorry about that. The Senate, I think, right now are really on ice, meaning to say they are standing on shaky ground. And if I were a senator, if I was a sitting senator, especially if I was running for re-election, I would want to push this under the rug as far as I could. Because again, the dynamics of a Senate election are the political calculus when you're running for a Senate is that 70% of your votes will come from retail votes or free market votes, and only 30% from machinery at the Senate level. So you're thinking, I'm going to end up alienating the Duterte votes, the Iglesia votes. Maybe this isn't the best thing for me to be voting on right now. Maybe let me run away from this as far as I can and try to remain as vanilla and as Switzerland as possible. So they're in a tenuous spot.
Especially after the show of power over at the INC rally,
Exactly.
right? Then how about you? Wouldn't it be something? Couldn't it be a bastion of power if they actually use this platform? If they had the impeachment trial during the midterm elections, somehow to change things on the ground. If things were not in your favor as a re-electionist.
It's going to be very hard to have an impeachment during the campaign. That's one. Why? Because impeachment is very political. And to a certain degree, you will right away be graded or evaluated by voters based on what you do during the impeachment. And you're talking of 12, 7 of which are running for re-election and 5 are retiring.
Correct.
So those things need to be factored in. My sense, the pressure is on the Senate, but I'm thankful that Senate President Escudero rose up to the challenge and really said, you know, if you call a special session refers to bills, not to impeachment. And forthwith in the Constitution did not take into consideration that it was going to be an adjournment. An adjournment in legislation means everything stops unless the chamber authorizes the committees to continue with their work. But that does not cover impeachment. That does not cover plenary. Yun yung hindi naiintindihan ng mga tao. Ang plenary is where decisions are made. Plenary would mean all of them present.
They need a session to convene themselves as an impeachment court.
Well, that's one. And that is plenary. Second is the adoption of rules, which is plenary. Because the Senate, I don't think they have updated the rules on impeachment. And then third, an agreement on the calendar on when the impeachment court will meet. So I was so I was so surprised that the House immediately named their prosecutors without waiting for the Senate to convene as a court. The tradition has been let the Senate convene, and from that time, they send a transmittal to the House saying, we have transmitted and please name your prosecutors. Dito talagang plinansye. So magugulat ka, anong agenda? Ang agenda ba to make it a political issue? Which is a wrong reading.
With your indulgence, Gretchen, I hope you don't mind. I'm curious though, why are the pro-Duterte supporters, why do they seem to be supporting a prolonged or a delayed trial, Senate trial, when in fact, would you say that it would benefit the administration if the new senators can...
I do not even agree that the new Senate, the 20th Senate
can,
has,
even
because
there's no
that's a
continuation.
new constitution already.
And non-legislative, right?
Yes. So the problem there, tactically, the 1-year ban.
Yeah, in Congress.
In Congress.
There's a 1-year ban in Congress, but the
Congress.
Senate actually...
But you cannot start another one.
Well, Justice Carpio, at least for his... he believes that the 20th can...
Crossover.
Yes, may continuation.
But I think that will ultimately be settled at the Supreme Court, right? At the court
none of us are
first
justices
instance.
after all.
Well, there's a lot to talk about how this impeachment complaint will change things on the ground. We'll get to know more about that with our guests here on Morning Matters. Don't go away. More matters to discuss right after the break. Keep it here on One News. Still with us on Morning Matters are Publicus Asia founder and CEO and political analyst Malu Tiquia and campaign strategist Alan Herman. Let's go back to the important question looming over everybody's heads is how does this VP impeachment change things on the ground? Before we get deeper into that, I'd just like to make the disclosure that both of them are political strategists and consultants actively performing their duty.
Very much so, yes.
Whether it's campaign period or not. So they're both active and therefore their insights are very relevant.
Fighting the good fight.
To the discussion, okay, who would like to take that first? How does this change things on the ground? And if you were advising a re-electionist, a Senate re-electionist, what would your advice be in handling this impeachment?
I'll take the first crack, okay? There is consolidation of voters. Insofar as the Dutertes are concerned. People are raring to go out and really campaign for the candidates of the slate of the former president. People are raring to make the issues of PhilHealth and the budget and the economy and corruption as the real issues of the campaign. Will it create a dent? my sense is yes, if you're looking at the votes of the Dutertes in Mindanao, Visayas, and a part of Luzon. If you compare the results of the election in 2016, 2019, 2022, there are tracer candidates in those runs where you will see where is the consolidation of the Duterte votes. And Mindanao is really one of it. It's all green from all those 3 election cycles. Bohol, Cebu, and some sputtering in Negros are all green. Bicol is yellow. Nobody can penetrate that, not even the Reds. Okay. When you look at Luzon, Luzon is actually the battlefield for the Dutertes because they have not cornered much in those areas. That's 56% of the total registered voters. So technically, you put Mindanao and Visayas, you need some provinces in Mindanao to help out the slate.
Balancing.
So, I mean, how does this, I mean, can the impeachment be talked about during campaigns?
Yes.
Should it be
Absolutely.
talked about, and is it proper if the re-electionists are or will be
The re-electionist is a
trial
different
judges?
story.
Yeah.
It's really entirely a different story for the simple reason that the re-electionist, as Alan was said, was kneecapped with this impeachment for the simple reason that the charges are not very clear. If you start talking about the impeachment as a campaign issue, it will not bring you the votes you need. Still, the issues would be economy,
Malayo sa bituka.
health, bituka.
Although I'd argue that the confidential funds and how the Vice President used the confidential funds is also an issue that voters like
but
to
Gretchen,
talk
you
about.
can readily pivot on the total confidential fund of this administration. And that confidential fund of the Vice President is what? Not even 5% of the total confidential fund of this administration. And COA is about to make that ruling in this February on how they see it, on how the confidential fund was actually liquidated. And then you always go back to the issue of saan ba ginamit yung
But the
confidential
questions were
fund.
never answered. Like, for example,
I think it was answered by documents
Mary
from...
Grace Piatos was
but
non-existent
Mary Grace
in the
Piatos-
PSA.
Agree.
Popcorn.
But Mary Grace Piatos is a that is one of the techniques in order to put together and liquidate a confidential fund. Confidential nga eh.
So
you
enjoying
wouldn't
my
see
popcorn.
you
I'm
wouldn't see
enjoying my popcorn very much. Cheese flavor.
Miss Goder. You wouldn't see they come up with their own names. Actually,
But
confidential
if
fund.
it's possible to put whatever name there, then it's possible also to disburse that fund to somebody else we don't know. How do
But
we
that
verify
is the nature of
identity?
confidential fund. All you have to do for Congress is to
Pero
file a
those
bill.
receipts are actually given to COA. It's not.
Yes, it is
disclosed
placed in an
public.
envelope with the
Nabigay
name. It is taped, and COA will now check
Nabigay
it.
na, nabigay
Why
na sa
would you
COA.
have to change the name? I mean, why not?
Because
be-
that is operational. If my asset is Miss Ho, I will cover your name to Piatos.
Pero hindi lang po yun ang controversial doon eh. Bukod doon, yung mga safe houses na pinaggagastusan.
Sabi ni
Pero
Bato,
yung-
meron daw
one day-
piatos na totoo.
Yung safe houses,
Meron daw mga Piatos.
kaya ganun kamahal kasi in advance muna bago na bayaran. Operational. When you do intelligence work, those are the facts of the matter. They did an intelligence work. Let's say they used that fund to another agency to do confidential work.
And that was, sabi ni Vice President, to conduct surveys on which areas to do VP projects on. Yun ang sinabi niyang dahilan, kaya nagkaroon ng ganong, yung confidential funds, doon siya nagamit. And when confidential funds are supposed to be for security reasons.
Well, if you'll allow me to weigh in.
Go ahead.
From a comms perspective. I'll take it from a comms perspective, not anymore from a legal standpoint, but really you're only looking at legality. Is it legal? Confidential funds. Yes, it is legal. There's a prevailing law. But so legality, necessity. Is it really necessary for an agency like the OVP to have confidential funds? That's a yes or no answer. So that's necessity, and then jeopardy. What would happen if the Vice President didn't have confidential funds? Would it result in anything catastrophic? Would there be rebels running around the Philippines? Would students suddenly take to the hills? That's a jeopardy of it. And finally, security. What are the security aspects in place to prevent abuse of such funds? So from a comms perspective, you always have to go through that those lenses. Is it legal? Is it necessary? What will happen if it's not implemented? And what are our safeguards in order for it not to be abused? So whether the confidential funds of the Vice President will tick all those boxes is perhaps another discussion for another
It's
day.
a very, very long discussion. But one thing that is for sure, both the President and Vice President have suffered a dip in trust ratings because of everything that has been discussed. Actually, double digits from SWS. 65% in July 2024 for the Vice President, drops down to 49% in January. And for President Marcos, from 64% in July of 2024, naging 50% na lang. Both of them suffering, both of them reacting in different ways. I want to know, what happened to VP Sara's presser? I heard that she was supposed to read a longer message. Is that correct?
No, it was really short.
Talaga?
She just needed to respond.
Sabi ng reporter kasi namin, may hawak daw siyang mas mahabang speech.
Hindi.
I'm not sure if the Dutertes are...
Kayo daw yung may kagagawa na kaya hindi niya binasa.
Hindi.
I'm not sure if the Dutertes are predisposed to
Maiksi
reading
lang.
statements.
Sumagot siya dahil may mga nagtatanong, kamusta ka na? Ano nangyayari sa'yo? So I guess it's just a message to the troops on the ground that I'm okay. And that, mas mahirap pa maghiwalay.
You have been outed, Malu. Ikaw pala nagsulat doon.
Hindi, kaya dinideny ko.
You have been outed.
But to be honest, do you think that the press con that she had back in November with the dark room and all, yung sinabi niya na
papatayin ko. Hindi naman niya sinabing papatayin.
Meron siyang kinausap. Kung
pinatay ako.
Kung pinatay siya, ay meron siyang
Alam mo,
kinausap.
Gretchen, si Trump ginamit rin yan. Sinabi niya, pag hindi kayo sumunod, Iran, sasabugan ko kayo. Pag pinatay niyo ako, masasabugan ko kayo,
Ang tawag
Iran.
daw dyan ay conditional threat.
Conditional
Conditional
threat.
threat. So pag sumakay ka daw ng eroplano, tapos sinabi mo, pag hindi ako makarating sa LA, papasabugin ko tong eroplano
But
na to.
grave threats conditional in themselves, in their nature. That's why it's a threat, right?
That was not a grave threat because hindi niya sinabing papatayin kita.
Pinapapatay kita is probably
May kinausap
Kung may
siya.
nangyari,
Pero may
condition-
kinausap siya.
Kung may nangyari sa akin.
Pero hindi ba lahat naman ng
Pero
pagbabanta ay may kondisyon?
Yeah, lahat tayo. I guess there was a time in our lives where we said, wag mo
No,
kong
my real
gaganyan.
question here is, do you think that was detrimental for the Vice President?
It could have been said in a better way. But, the circumstances warrant her saying that because her chief of staff was being attacked. So, I guess that's the reason why she stayed there and protected the chief of staff. So, again, you go back. Kung binaliktad natin yung sitwasyon at si Congressman Sandro naipit, hindi ba ang presidente magsasabi rin ng ganon?
At sinabi na nga niya na...
Hindi daw niya palalagpasin.
Kaya siya
Actually,
pumirma.
Maganda naman yung
Nakakagulat nga ba raw kung gano'n na nga
perhaps not
nasabi.
phrased in such...
Your thoughts?
I'll take a stand. Absolutely, it was just
taking a
detrimental.
look at the two pressers, the first one in November, the second one, the latest one, by the Vice President, do you think there was a change in tone, a change in strategy somehow?
I've said it once. I'll say it a million times over. There is, of course, transference that's measurable. Malu knows this. 7 to 11% loss of transference when you're thinking about a successor, either a son or a daughter. So the charm, the appeal, the persona, the so-called care attributes of the main guy, in this case PRRD, it doesn't fully transfer to his children. Perhaps VP Inday Sara should take heed of this and realize that she herself is her own formidable brand. Because I'm telling you, if and when VP Inday wants to be charming, as we saw in the last presser, she is absolutely charming. With her little sideways glances, her little grins, she's interacting with the media, she's glib. So she doesn't necessarily need to fully adopt that, hell hath no fury, burn the village approach of PRRD. That worked for him very, very efficiently and effectively. But with VP Inday, I think, as I've said, a charming VP Inday Sara is far more effective and a far bigger threat to her political opponents than a
Kaya pala lately, parang medyo,
than a
pag
stormy,
nagpe-press con si
fiery
VP,
one.
very
and
fresh,
And did you notice the way she
composed?
interacts? Again, it's her going off script. It's her little grins. It's her little chides. She's well, we call it shared values, di ba? She makes sure to establish shared values with the audience. Yun ang mahirap talunin. Kasi kung parati ka lang galit, ang sarap mong pikunin. Pikon talo sa Pilipinas. Pikon talo.
That's true.
Pag pikon ka, mas lalo kitang pipikunin. Di ba? Who the gods want to destroy, they make angry.
But what can the Vice President do to regain the trust of the public? And she is at 49% now in terms of trust ratings,
Still ahead,
below
though.
the majority.
Yeah, but still ahead of the president.
What can she do in the next months, next years, heading to 2028, saying that she's seriously considering running for president, even as she is being tried here in the House of Representatives?
The Vice President is up and up. She had a good rest during the Christmas break. I think we're looking at her as joining the campaign trail in terms of voter education. She would probably go down directly to the voters, not to the candidates. So we are trying to reframe her role in the 90-day campaign. Beyond that, I think the impeachment will redefine her, as Alan was suggesting. There is a different persona that is being presented, but despite the cut in the budget, she will continue to work. I mean, that's 730 million only budget. So if she's able to respond adequately, efficiently, effectively to the public, then even with the cut, she becomes more endearing to them.
Will she be joining the PDP Laban campaign rallies?
That I don't think she is. She will do that because she is not PDP.
She quit. And fully outed na si
So
Mo.
no, but she was never PDP.
Tama. Sorry, she
Yeah,
was...
correct.
Sorry, my mistake.
But we do
And
know
I'm not
that-
wearing green.
Oo nga, hindi kayo naka-green.
Fully outed na.
Pero hindi po siya mag-endorse.
Meron namang in-endorse na iba, pero yung to actually be front and center in what's going to happen
Sino po
in the
in-endorse
90 day. Meron, si Marcoleta, si Quiboloy, yung kandidato sa first district ng Leyte na may problema ngayon. So meron siya mga ine-endorse na
upak talaga.
very few kasi hindi mo naman kailangan gasgasin yung endorsement mo. But be that as it may, based on survey results, endorsement value, it's still PRRD, VP Sara, and then the President. So if you slice and dice who will endorse, still PRRD has the lead.
How about the President? What can he do here?
Well, you always hear it. It's the most abused term. Controlling the narrative. Somebody must control the narrative. He or she who controls the narrative wins. That's a trope. That's a almost a cliche. I think this begs the question: what exactly or how exactly do you control the narrative? The formula has never changed through time. It's always he or she who most effectively tells what we call a 3V story controls the narrative.
What's the 3V?
Villain? Portray somebody as the villain, effectively. I'm being persecuted. The might, the political machinery is being
Sinong
used.
inaapi?
Sinong
Oh,
api.
yung underdog.
Ayan, villain.
Napakakwan niya sa
And of
underdog.
course, hand in hand with that,
that could also work against
Both ways. It could go
those
both
pursuing
ways.
the impeachment complaint, right?
That's what I'm saying.
If the Vice President looks like the victim in this whole
he or she who
situation.
most effectively tells a 3V story
So
will
villain?
control the... of course, with a villain, there's a victim. who is being victimized. So it's up to one side will probably say it's the Filipino people. Your trust has been abused. Money has been stolen. And the other one will probably say, look at this. It's the Goliath of political machinery and might being
And the
levied
third?
against you. And the third is vindication. One day I shall rise and I will fulfill my mandate to the people.
Just on a final note, teka lang, konti na lang ang oras natin. Naku, napakabilis. Parang feeling ko pwede pang tong 2 hours.
Oo nga.
No,
Ako
but
na
seriously,
nag-popcorn mode ako. Enjoy ako sa
we're headed
ano nila
into the national campaign tomorrow, beginning tomorrow. I guess as an observer of what's been happening, kailangan ba talagang sumayaw sa TikTok para manalo? I mean,
Oo.
is that a must nowadays?
Well, maybe nabagayan.
And how much votes can you actually get off a strong TikTok?
Gretchen, ang
Platform.
millennial at alpha is 63% of the total registered voters. That's how big. So you need to reach out in the language, in the platform that they are in. TikTok is number 1. You need to do that in order to capture yung mind
Awareness,
nila. Oo. So that, si Marcoleta pala, ganito. Ano ba si Marcoleta? And they start asking. And they start digging. And TikTok is just an opener. So yung pagsasayaw o pagkakanta, yun yung opening doon.
And then, how do you follow through?
And then you talk about who, why. Who is the candidate? Why are you running for that position?
So you make
Why
several
should I vote for
videos
him?
in the same platform.
Yes, and why should you?
Is it
vote for
still
him?
necessary to go on ground, though? I mean,
Oh,
that can all
yeah.
be done online.
My belief is ground is conversion. A lot of strategists are saying that social media is conversion. No, it's not. It's still ground.
Mababa
Your
conversion.
thoughts on a final note before we head off into the campaign period?
It absolutely depends what position you're running for. The ratio changes. But to Malu's point, if you're running local, absolutely ground is king. You have to put boots on the ground. You have to...
But for the national scope, hindi ka mananalo kapag wala kang TikTok.
Hindi ka mananalo pag wala
Personality.
kang social media in total. So that's TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. Kalimutan mo na yung ex, mga elitista lang nandun, katulad ni Gretchen.
Wala na, hindi na masyadong active na idol. But fearless forecast before we go, what do you think is going to happen in the next months? Will there be an impeachment trial? Will the Vice President resign? Is there a chance of that happening? Malu?
Impeachment, no. Resigning, you have 32 million. So why will you resign? In terms of the senatorial candidates, I see 6 being able to launch a competitive run, and there'll be 6 others. Watch out for the independents because the undecideds are very, very high.
How about you?
Wow. Definitely, I don't think any resignation will happen. I mirror that opinion. I think that the administration right now, I would say, and figuratively, of course, their backs are really against the wall. They have to do something about Vice President Inday Sara Duterte. And they will definitely move heaven, earth, and everything in between in order to get her either impeached or render her politically
But your
damaged.
forecast, will the impeachment trial happen?
I think it's a
during the
matter of
midterms?
time. I don't think they will have the time to actually credibly launch an impeachment. It's
Kahit
not as
3
easy
months.
as we think, man. Number one, VP Inday has 10 days to respond. So if they open on June 2, technically speaking,
No, if they have a special session.
if they have a special session, may 10 days pa yan. You have to convene the prosecutors.
Special session, diretso yan sa Supreme Court.
Ang hirap
Can
ng
you
impeachment.
do a special session based on impeachment?
Pwede, sabi ni,
And those prosecutors are
sabi
they're-
ni Senator Cheese, pwede raw sa ilalim ng saligang batas.
And those
pwede
prosecutors are
magpatawag.
in for a wake-up call, I'm telling you.
Naku, mukhang mahaba-haba pa to talaga.
Ibang quadcom,
But I'm
ibang
so sorry
ibang
we have
impeachment.
to cut that right there. Thank you so much for the insightful discussion today and giving us the context of the upcoming national campaign period, which will kick off tomorrow. And joining us for our pilot episode, we have Publicus Asia founder and CEO political analyst Malu Tikia and campaign strategist Alan Herman.
Thanks, Gretchen.
Thank you.
U.S. President Donald Trump is set to make history as the first president to attend the Super Bowl. Football is close to Trump's heart as he once played football in high school. He thinks the Chiefs will win against the Philadelphia Eagles, with Kansas City quarterback Patrick Mahomes the difference maker. Meanwhile, Taylor Swift also attended the event. She is also supporting the Chief, where his boyfriend is playing. Hawaii's unique combination of abundant sunshine, brief rain showers, and clean air makes it one of the best places on Earth to witness stunning rainbows. A University of Hawaii professor even refers to the state as the rainbow capital of the world. With the islands currently experiencing their winter rainy season, the chances of spotting a rainbow are even higher than usual. These colorful arcs are so common in Hawaii that they have become a beloved symbol of island life, appearing on buildings, public buses, and even the state's license plates. What a good way to end the pilot episode of Morning Matters with a rainbow. We're going to need more of that, more images of that, especially after all the disaster we've experienced in the first month of the year. We hope there's a rainbow after the rain.
Rainbow at the end of the rain, and you just dated yourself, Gretchen. You just majorly dated yourself.
That's today's episode of Morning Matters. I'm Gretchen Ho. We are One News, all sides, all the time.